Hello and welcome to Ethereum Classic Community Call. This is number 25, and today is the 5th of July 2022. This week is a follow-up from last week's episode where we talked with Bob Sumwell, and we had a bunch of content that we didn't have a chance to get to. So this week we will be providing an ecosystem update. And in particular, we'll be hearing from a friend of the show, Ronan, who will be updating us on some of the products that he's been working on, as well as some discussion that we'll have about other areas in the ETC ecosystem. So I guess we can kick off with Ronan. Why don't you take the floor and let us know about what you've been working on?
All right. Hey, how's it going, guys? All right. Here, let me just post that YouTube live link. All right. So pretty much what we've put up, as I had signaled in the past, was we put up a swap product called ETC Swap. You should just go to etcswap.org, and you can check it out there. And then it's a basic Uniswap v2 clone. That's a tried and true protocol, open source. So there's been plenty of liquidity in it on the ETH Foundation network. So it seems to be a pretty stable protocol at this point. We did Uniswap v2 because the license allows that. The v3 does not allow you to fork that over at this point. When we can do that, I believe we will do that. Anyways, and then through that, I had signaled the intent to bring stablecoins over to ETC in some sort of decentralized way. Right now, you can obviously exchange ETC to any stablecoin on a centralized exchange, so that's never really been an issue. But doing so in a non-custodial, decentralized way, and in a way that's through a reputable outfit. That was kind of the challenge. So we did some research on that, trying to figure out kind of what the best solution for that would be. We obviously looked back at, Chainbridge and some of the older things that had actually already been propped up on ETC, but didn't really get much traction. And then we identified multichain.org as a really good solution for that, based on how many networks they already have integrated, based on also that they're backed by Binance. I think that adds some credit to their reputation. They had a previous hack back in, I want to say it was early 2022, maybe January, and they refunded all customers, and then redid audits and did a big security thing. This was in the wave of bridge hacks, so that's kind of been a thing. So this was that was kind of an area that we identified as a pretty big risk, definitely in terms of putting up our own bridge, but also in bridges that we would like to look at and integrate with. And so we kind of identified multi-chain as probably the most reputable one out there right now. That is really hard technology. So if any of you aren't familiar, doing non-custodial swaps cross-chain has been something that people have talked about for a very long time. Very hard to pull off. So take a look at their product. What's great about it is that it allows you, we wanted a bridge for the ETH to ETC network for the merge event, so that people can start funneling liquidity over to hedge against anything that might happen on the ETH network during that. And so that was our main goal. What's great is that they have a bunch of other networks, and so we saw there was a need for cheaper fees, obviously, to come over to ETC because the ETH Foundation network is pretty expensive to go back and forth. So we identified BNB chain as probably the most sound second chain to integrate with. So we bridged BNB chain and ETH chain to ETC. You can go back and forth. I believe it's no fees to bridge over to ETC. So that's great. So bringing liquidity to this network shouldn't cost you very much money. Maybe gas fees, minor gas fees, nominal fees like that. Going back to the other chains, going back to the ETH Foundation, is pretty expensive. That's why we wanted to make sure we had the BNB chain for that. And so I encourage anyone to try that out, is to try to bring liquidity over. If you deposit liquidity into ETC swap, you will get 25 bips to all liquidity pools. So you don't have to hold a special token or anything like that. I know that some people do that. I think that's what the uni people do. Is you hold a token and then get liquidity provider rewards or something like that. We don't have. There's none of that going on. It's just add liquidity into those pools. You'll help the network out because people can do on-chain swaps, all of that, and you'll earn those liquidity pool fees. The 4 stable coins that are supported right now for the bridge are Tether, Coinbase's USDC, let's see, DAI, DAI, if you're unfamiliar with that, that's an Ethereum Foundation stablecoin, and then BUSD, so Binance USD. So those are the 4, and they're the 4 biggest stablecoins by market cap. So it's pretty material bringing those over. Other assets that are active on the bridge are wrapped Bitcoin. So now there's on-chain ETC to wrap Bitcoin markets. Ethereum Foundation ETH, that is bridged over, and BNB from the BNB chain, so Binance's coin. So all of those assets are bridged over to ETC. Feel free to test it out, test out bridging, test out adding liquidity, test out swaps. We're talking about fractions of pennies to test out stuff on ETC, so just be cautious with that. But it all generally functions just like Uniswap v2. So it should be pretty self-explanatory if you've ever used a swapping product. And that's really the big update on that. I think it took us, we signaled that we were going to do this when we heard that the merge was successful back in March 2022. And that kind of signaled that, okay, it looks like Ethereum will be the largest proof of work smart contract network. So it has a material position in the blockchain space, and it looks like it has a bright future. It just looks like now we're entering a point where it's kind of organic growth. Sure, VCs and all of that, you saw that on Ethereum Foundation, but that's kind of how this network goes. And so that's kind of what we're watching for. We're watching for the merge, and we expect that liquidity will slowly funnel into those swap products, the swap pools, and people will make use of it. So anyways, that's really the update on that.
Awesome. Thanks for that update. And sounds like a really low-hanging fruit initiative that we talked about. Although obviously there's a lot of work involved in it. It's stuff that's really going to provide a lot of value. And I guess the Ethereum Classic ecosystem has a lot to appreciate, I think, about this. I did have a few questions that were brought up in your discussion there. So first you mentioned that Uniswap, the V3 license, is not compatible with forking. Could you elaborate a bit on that? I thought it was open source. What's preventing you from doing that?
Yeah, so when they made the V3, we looked at it because V3 is actually really favorable for stablecoin markets, which was kind of one of my primary goals with putting this product online, was bringing stablecoins into the ETC ecosystem on chain. I think that's high value and not a huge lift. But due to SushiSwap, what they ended up doing was, with their license, I believe they put a couple years clause, so you can't fire up the V3. It's not open source until like a couple years after running. So I can't remember the specific year, but that's what's restricting the cloning the V3 protocol.
That's an interesting approach to open source. I haven't seen that elsewhere, but I guess it makes sense in terms of maintaining a bit of a monopoly. But
yeah, I think it makes sense for building up their own pools, and also I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of security. I think they'll get all the bugs worked out on V3 while they have their bug bounty and all of that, and people aren't cloning it. And so I actually think it's kind of a good service that they're doing by doing that. And then, a couple years into it, whenever that opens up for open source, it'll have gone through kind of that security live test with serious liquidity there. And a good bug bounty program. So I actually kind of appreciate that they did that. And I see why they did it from a competition perspective, but also a security to the greater ecosystem.
Yeah, indeed. I do wonder what would happen though if some, shall we say, it kind of encourages pirated versions of the software to be launched and released anonymously. So it'd be interesting to see in the future where if they are making massive gains and someone wants to replicate that, what are they actually going to do legally if someone else deploys it in a decentralized environment?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that DAO hacker story was kind of a prime example of these chains that may be anonymous for a while, but I mean, if you're the problem is let's say you do put up a V3 and then it's extremely successful. Well, now you have a ton of money that they can try to get from you in damages, right? So you put a big target on you, and then it makes sense to do the blockchain analysis and track down who you are. And it's on the blockchain forever. So as we saw with the Bitfinex hackers, right? It's like they can get away for a little while, but as the value goes up, the target gets bigger on your back, and then all of a sudden it's worthwhile to trace you down and catch you. So it doesn't really make sense to me to try to violate that license from someone that's I just think if you just honor it and do it correctly, what's a couple years, if it's a good protocol,
I think you're forgetting that there's a lot of privacy advancement, like Rail project. Now you can pretty much, doesn't matter if you can send Ethereum to Ethereum address privately and that funds just disappear. So I think you're forgetting a lot of privacy aspects and factors that are coming into this ecosystem that would allow to disguise those funds. I mean, you can do all the chain analysis in the world, but they're building.
Yeah, we'll see. You make one mistake. That's the one thing about the blockchain. You make one mistake, and that's what most people do. So, So anyway, so just in terms of trying to violate that license, I just don't think it makes very much sense.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely not at this stage, and I wouldn't suggest it's a wise thing to do at all. Merely a thought experiment, but yeah, I think the V2, especially now for ETC, the fees are not too bad, so V3 is not really paying any benefit anyway.
Yeah, I think the big benefit of the V3 versus the V2 is how you can range your liquidity, and so something like a stablecoin where you expect all the liquidity to be around $1. The V2 price curve doesn't really make a ton of sense in terms of liquidity usage. So your depth really gets depleted pretty quickly in a scenario like that. Whereas other coins where you expect volatility, it's a little bit different. But for stable coins, V3 is a substantial upgrade.
Cool. So my next comment was about your approach to naming conventions and how you are describing the different assets and how they. I noticed that, for example, if you wanted to swap ETC for DAI, it's just pure DAI in the UI. And whilst I reckon that's the most simple way of doing it, as time goes on, do you have any ideas about how you would deal with multiple versions of DAI on different chains and different bridges, and whether or not you need to somehow like unmask the counterparty risk involved in the different types of assets that are listed, instead of just saying it's pure DAI, which it isn't really. It's DAI via a bridge. So did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and so I had originally set this up with any DAI, and it was extremely confusing for anyone outside. And this is just a tokenless thing, so it's actually extremely easy to adjust with one simple GitHub pull request. But if you highlight the DAI, it actually does say multi-chain peg DAI. So that's kind of what I decided to do. Is that it still still shows that it's multi-chain if you highlight over it. But yeah, the ticker is just that, and we were really looking at that when we were looking at setting up the analytics for this, and how we would plug in these DAI trades to any sort of coin market cap and all of that. And then I think I am aware that in the future, I imagine there will be more bridges, right? So I don't expect multi-chain to be the only one. And also perhaps some of these stablecoins will natively issue on ETC, which that's the main goal in the long run. Is if our hash rate goes up, it makes a lot of sense for someone like Tether to natively issue some Tether onto this network. And in that case, will simply do an adjustment of the token list, and we can add an MC to it, a prefix, and they used to be called AnySwap, and so they used to do all of their tokens were any and then whatever the ticker was. It was just extremely confusing for the general public, and so that's the only reason why we just dropped it to just what the normal tickers are, and then added just the alt description that highlights that it's a peg.
Yeah, I think for now, especially when there's only one version of those assets, then it makes the most sense to do whatever's simple and people can easily understand.
Yeah, and so we'll definitely adjust whatever's needed as things progress. But this was just to get us foundationally. Now we have stable coins on chain. There is a non-custodial way to bridge out of them to their native networks. Oh, and by the way, I believe I'm not sure if the integration's 100% done, and if you can take like Tether, for instance, and take it over to the BNB chain from ETC. I know that they were working on that. So I don't know if that's completed yet, but that will be the goal. Is that to go back off of ETC? It won't cost you $50 or whatever it was to go through the ETH Foundation bridge. You can go the BNB bridge, and then obviously a deposit into Binance and convert it to whatever you need to on a centralized if you needed to do that.
I see. It's interesting. And I guess at that stage it would be like a multi-hop thing. So you're going from Tether, like their vault or whatever, to Ethereum to ETC, and then from ETC to BNB, and multiple wrapping.
Yeah, it would be a wrap to a wrap. And then probably what makes the most sense to the ETH fees is to convert it on a centralized exchange, and then you could cash it out. Like, let's say if you were doing Coinbase or something, and then cash it out on Coinbase for that 1-to-1 no fee to fiat, right? So just like the path to fiat, going from ETC to fiat probably makes most sense. Instead of going through the ETH Foundation, it makes sense to go through the BNB chain because of the nominal fees associated.
Before I talk about counterparty risk and how the bridge is operating, at this, basically now Ethereum Classic is kind of running as a sidechain, if you like, or as a shard of Ethereum, whereby assets on Ethereum can be ported over and used more efficiently at lower gas fees. And also technically a sidechain to Bitcoin now, because via Ethereum, wrapped Bitcoin is on there. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, the bridge that you're using, multi-chain. Could you talk a bit more about how the function of the bridge actually operates in terms of counterparty risk? And you mentioned that it's trustless. How does it deal with things like chain splits in that case? How does it resolve a chain split? For example, if Ethereum forked in two, what would the Ethereum asset on ETC look like at that point?
You know, I love to talk deeply on multi-chain and everything about it, but I'm not an expert in it, right? So I don't necessarily feel comfortable kind of pitching their product in that way. So I don't know that I can answer that in a way that would be intelligent and would be honest to the community. So maybe we host a call and have them talk about their product in detail and everything about it.
Yeah, that would be cool. Good idea. In the meantime, as far as I'm aware, it's as you mentioned, trustless bridges are really difficult, and I think we should be pretty careful with the use of the word trustless, and maybe revert to trust minimized, as Donald likes to do in the interim.
Yeah, I agree. And non-custodial versus custodial. That's more what I usually think about it in terms of legal risk to them.
Yeah, I guess in most of these protocols, there's some level of custodian. I mean, if they got hacked before, there must be some way to. I mean, it's usually some kind of multi-sig basically, and if they have really good security properties around the multi-sig, it could be considered fairly, like, there's no single custodian, but it's still a group of people that if they collude could potentially steal stuff, and that's usually the case. But yeah, I think it would be worth looking in detail about how their stuff operates.
Yeah, and my understanding is Harmony just went through a multi-sig attack, so it's worth reading up on it. Similar technology. Yeah, this is the hardest tech problem to solve, I believe, right now in terms of interoperability, is the non-custodial elements.
So in terms of interest so far, obviously there probably hasn't been tons of advertising yet. I mean, this is the first time we're talking about it on a call, so hopefully things pick up going forward. But I was just interested in how are things looking in terms of liquidity providers, and how does, maybe you can explain the difference between the liquidity on the multi-chain system and the liquidity within ETC swap, because I guess there's two different elements of liquidity there.
Yeah, so I don't think that there's been very meaningful adoption of anything right now. It's not listed anywhere. There isn't an analytics dashboard or anything like that. We don't have the graph, so it's not extremely easy. You have to do a local instance of that. Also, given the markets, I mean, I think when we put this out, we probably had one of the worst weeks of Bitcoin price. So as you can see, there's a lot of fear and anxiety. So I wouldn't expect this to. I think this is kind of going to go how when Uniswap kind of launched in 2019, how it just kind of took a while to gain traction. So I don't necessarily think that this product will be, I'm not planning on doing a big marketing thing for this or anything. It's really the functionality is there. I think it will grow grassroots. And if it doesn't have any value, then it will die off. But generally speaking, I see value there. So I just think that that's the way it's going to go. A lot of people have asked me to deposit a lot of liquidity in there and all that, and I just don't think that that's kind of the right route for this ecosystem. I think grassroots liquidity makes a lot more sense.
Well, I think there's a lot of trust issues with Ethereum Classic community. So, nobody's really gonna, if you're sitting there waiting for everybody to all of a sudden, oh yeah, I want to dump my liquidity in this new thing. I mean, you're gonna be waiting a long time. I mean, just knowing the history of Ethereum Classic and just, how things go. I mean, it's all a money grab and everything else. People are not just going to sit there, because I'm looking at it right now just to see what's the easiest way to add liquidity. If I buy ETC, if I buy, let's say the Binance peg or the USDT peg, I mean, the price would be, just for me to get like 3 or 4 ETC worth, I'd be selling $10 ETC, you know. So nobody's really going to be utilizing this platform until I think you add in just a little bit, you know, just to give everybody that leap of faith.
Yeah, and and you're welcome to have that opinion. The code is open source, so you're more than welcome to review the code. All of that. I just, I'm the one that put this up, right? So I'm kind of approaching it how I want to approach it. If you want a lot of liquidity in there, you guys got to put liquidity in there if you want to use it, if you see value. If you don't, it's really no sweat off me, right? So the operational cost isn't drastically big to operate this.
Right. No, I respect that.
ETFs,
I don't think anybody's asking you for a lot of liquidity. I think just something basic, just to kick it off. That's all.
I just want to add to this. Just a second. I just want to add to this. According to chain analysis, in terms of trading or effectively swapping coins from one coin to another, or the entire volume for 1 year, it's like 60% is done on swaps. So there's a very big market there, and we already seen big players evolving this and having this. This is just the start here. It's absolutely great.
I think if you just organically look at what happened with Uniswap and how it just jumped up, and any swap market, right? It's a massive percentage of volume, and people with a lot of liquidity might see this as, hey, we're a liquidity provider company. We will go in and we'll provide liquidity here, right? They can look at the code. They can do all of that. It's all there to look at. I sometimes wish with this community, they would step up and do a lot of stuff and do maybe less complaining, because what I kind of see is people do a lot of lifts around here, and then people expect more and more. But this is grassroots, guys. This is an open source community. You guys are welcome to add liquidity, or you're not. It doesn't really matter. In the long run, the value is there, and someone's going to want to make money with those 25 bips. All of the financial incentive is there. And so if we have to wait for that to happen, that's fine. That's how it kind of goes. But, to just put it on me and say, hey, Ronan, not only do you have to put up this protocol and do all this stuff, but now you have to go and take all of your capital, put it up in there, let us swap and do all, it's like, you guys.
And again, Ronan, I respect what you, but I think what you're forgetting, that this is not Ethereum. This is Ethereum Classic. I mean, look at Saturn. What happened to Saturn DAO? What happened to all of these other protocols that were born in Ethereum Classic, having the same mentality, and they're just old dust. They're gone.
Yeah,
this is like a whole different. You can't compare yourself to the Uniswap or whatever else of Ethereum Classic. Yeah, you have the platform, you have the code. It looks like it, but that doesn't mean that what worked for Uniswap is going to work for you on the Ethereum Classic, because our ecosystem is not the same. You know what I mean? We don't have the same. Like ETC has more freedom, people, rather than brainwashed lefties. I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend anyone, but that's the truth. And people think different in the Ethereum Classic ecosystem. So you can sit there and shit all over people, your potential investors, and tell them that you don't give a fuck about them, but expect the same exact result.
Listen, there is no investment here. I'm not soliciting money. I think that's a big confusion with some of you guys is, you get to decide if you want to contribute to the liquidity pool or not.
It's my investment, right? I'm putting my money and locking in, whether it's a bridge or it's your platform, whatever it is, right? I did the same shit with Saturn. Many did, and many got burnt, right? So who are you for us to trust you, right? To say, hey, just go ahead and do your own thing, provide your own, what I'm saying? Like, I get it, and I respect what you're saying. It is your project and everything else. But, if you, I'm just giving you my input. If you really want this thing to take off, nobody's asking you to pour millions and be a liquidity provider, but just something just reasonable to where people can just start adding to it. You know what I mean? Where they don't have to jump hoops with the bridges and everything else. They can just go ahead and get it from your liquidity and add right into it. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think it'll get there. I think maybe you're asking for, it's a pretty new thing, so it'll get there. Listen, I'm not soliciting money. I'm not doing any of that stuff. The protocol's there. It's open source. It's non-custodial. I can't turn it off. It's deployed. This you're acting. Maybe something that I put up, but I mean, there's an IPFS gateway. This thing will be here as long as the ETC network's here. So, and these markets as well. I'm not a gatekeeper or anything like that. So you guys get to run with this. It's a great thing to have that bridge. Those are great things for the network, but this is a decentralized network. It doesn't depend just on me. So, so just understand that, and just understand that it's my choice to say, listen, I'm not gonna, I put resources in this already, right? And so, so it's on you guys to use the product and use the chain and use the network. And if you don't feel comfortable doing this, just wait. You'll see. It'll just organically grow. I'm pretty confident in that. I've been around the space for a while, so have you. So you've seen these things progress. And we're not in a great market. It'll be nice, slow and steady. And I think it's a great ad for the network. So on-chain swaps is a very, very big use case for a network like this.
The platform looks great. I think you did an amazing job with the bridges and everything else. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not giving you a hard time just to give you a hard time. I think you know how I am by now. But I was just like throwing some constructive criticism out there. But other than that, I mean, I trust your work. That doesn't mean anyone else trusts your work, and
and I would say don't trust, verify, and the code is open source on chain on Block Scout. Go and take that and look at it compared to other code. I mean, this stuff is all open source. You can look at it all. We did it all properly. We even fixed Block Scout because you couldn't verify code before we started working. We worked with ETC co-op and fixed a bug. You couldn't even verify your code before we started working on it. So that's
called progress. That's good.
Exactly. And so and to their credit, I mean, I believe it. I can't remember. I think it was Diego that helped us, and just great work on him. He was very responsive, and now anyone can verify their contracts on chain. So anyways, I would just read into what go read into Uniswap v2, because that's what this is. It's not like a drastic recode or anything like that. Just go read into that. If you're unfamiliar with it, that should get you comfortable on what's been launched. This stuff's been around. It's had billions of dollars going through it. These are tried and true protocols. Multi-chain, definitely do your homework on that. It looks from our team, it looked like this was the best solution for a bridge, but as the disclaimer is that bridge technology is very hard. It's been targeted on hacks and all of that. So you guys really need to do your own research on that. We just integrated all of this because it seemed like the best solution. And we looked at other bridges as well. And so hopefully in the future, we won't have to have necessarily this type of bridge where we're getting stable coins in this way. Hopefully we have native state of coins issued directly. We just don't have that right now. We're only at 30 terahash. We're getting there. So this is a stepping stone for, I think, some great things in the future for this network. I hope that what we see out of the community is we start seeing a lot more usage on the network. I think we'll see a lot of development. We're going to see a lot more miners. We'll just, all of this stuff, we're going in the right direction. So that's just really all I have to say on that, and kind of what I think the next 2 years is about.
Yeah, I appreciate all your work, Ron. You did a really good job with the Ethereum Classic.
I appreciate your comments, and I understand them. I just wanted to clear the air of an expectation of, I'm just kind of letting it kind of grow a little organically. I think that that's better in this network rather than me force feeding it down people or marketing it and doing all that. I think it'll just kind of organically pick up, and I think we'll be all right.
Just a quick question. Do you plan to evolve this in new products, because having those pairs and it can give room for other stuff, other type of products. Are you thinking about that?
Yes, yeah, that's actually exactly why we targeted this, is that like these type of pairs are foundational, right? So you can build a lot of DeFi protocols on top of these pairs as the liquidity builds up. So it kind of takes it'll take time for the liquidity pools to build up, but then all of a sudden you can have borrowing and lending markets that are sourcing from these pools. You can do all sorts of things. DApp developers can just directly tie in. People can be doing their ICOs, and all of a sudden now they're they're doing a stable coin in their ICO, right? Instead of just ETC. So there's just a ton of functionality that comes by having these base foundational pairs. And that was really my goal. And I come from the exchange space. I've watched volume through exchange products, and I just know that these pairs right here, these are the big players. This is where the most volume comes. This is where the deepest liquidity will reside. And it allows for things like a big ICO boom and all of that on top of the network. It allows, those lending protocols and all of that to start forming. But, we're not working on the ETH Foundation budget, right? So this is, it just kind of it takes more time to just kind of evolve. And I think that we'll start seeing big players will start noticing as things keep getting turned online and the hash rate goes up.
I had a question about your what's your involvement with the Mandela exchange project? Because I remember you were the one who kind of got me involved in that. Is that something
I was just an investor in that.
Okay, all right. I just wanted, because I didn't know if you were actually involved in the project or if, you're just investing.
No, I was hands off, just a capital contribution to that.
Because it would be nice to see, like, at least one exchange to start listing these ETC RC20 pairs, like they are with the Ethereum chain.
For the audience, could you explain what Mandela is?
I'm sorry?
That was just that's a Binance Cloud partnership exchange. And so anyways, it was just something that I had told him about probably back in 2021 or 2022. So pretty unrelated to this. It's a different project.
I was just wondering about having like ETC ERC pairs listed on exchanges, and that's the only reason why I asked if you had any connections with that exchange or with that project. It would be cool if you could try to
I don't have much say in all that. It would kind of be like Digital Currency Group, how they invest in other things, and and like their ability to have ETC listed on all sorts of stuff, Barry and such. So I don't really have much say on that. I'm sorry, that wouldn't be comparable. He probably has a lot more weight than anything that I have.
Could you dive into the details a little bit about the fees involved in using ETC swap, and like what's to prevent someone from just forking the project and removing the fees?
I think that's always been a case for any swap product, but the fees are just general. We didn't adjust much of it at all, and so when you look at the V2, there's a 25 bips for the liquidity providers, and then I believe there's 5 bips, and that's the stuff that's going to the long-term development fund that I had spoke about previous. Is those fees end up going to future development of future protocols and such. And so, someone could, for sure, if they wanted to, probably fork and remove all fees if they wanted to. I don't think we've ever seen that in a swap product, but go for it.
Also, I was thinking a great ad would be to see if you can add the grayscale product that they have, so you would then have ETC as a bridge between grayscale projects. Have you thought of that?
No, I haven't, but that would be fascinating. I don't know. Is anyone else doing that where they do bridges to ETFs or any of those New York Stock Exchange listed products? I don't really know how a bridge with that would work considering the financial regulations and all that, but that'd be fascinating if someone was bridging like Tesla over to crypto markets.
I think FTX is doing that in some way.
Yeah, you'd have to do it via futures contract, I guess. Or that would be one way of doing it, by futures contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. What I hope happens is we start seeing developers come in that set up something like a DYDX and any of those on-chain protocols, and we start seeing that stuff start to sprout up. But over here is it was really just our lift was signaled to get stablecoins and a swap product and try to get some meaningful markets on chain.
I was wondering if you could talk about I saw a discussion regarding wrapped ETC and like a HebeSwap as well, what they're doing and what happened there and what's the status of wrapped ETC?
Yeah, I think that my understanding is a couple people weren't extremely familiar with wrapped ETC, and so generally it's just there is a contract from the Wrapped Ether project, the WETH.io project. And anyways, so we ended up, when you deploy this swap product, you do have to specify a wrapped ETC. Or if you were doing it on the ETH chain, it would be a wrapped ETH, or if you did it on the BNB chain, it'd be a wrapped BNB. And so it's just a non-custodial contract that's been around for a while. Actually, the very first one was launched, I think, on ETC was launched in 2019. And so when we were setting up, we just decided that we were going to follow the WETH.io project, and we would any protocol that we work on would support a common WETC, and we just hadn't seen that in any of the ecosystem at the time. And so some people thought that we should have used the HebeSwap WETC. I'm not sure if it was verified at the time, to be honest with you. I don't think that we even looked at their WETC to see if it was the same contract or anything like that. It appears it is the same contract, and they have 3,000 ETC in there. At the end of the day, it's not really a big deal. Essentially, all you do is you just unwrap to ETC, and then it's interoperable between any protocol. But when we were setting it up, we were just setting it up after the WETH. And we had signaled to them that that's what we were going to do, and they said, we're going to do our WETC. So it's it's no sweat. It's not
Is there
really
any way to bridge that by chance?
I don't think that it necessarily makes any sense to bridge it, because you could just for
Not bridge it in a way, but I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just for such a nominal fee, you can just unwrap. If you just go back to ETC.
Right. I was just thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is not a big deal. It would be a big deal if we were seeing like $50 fees, if we were that far into it. But we don't
merge it in the future, maybe, and
Say
put
what?
it together. Any way to merge it in the future? Is it possible to, let's say, merge your contract?
No, I don't think so. And then if you wanted to do like a WETC to WETC liquidity pool, it wouldn't make much sense, because then you would be on a price curve opposed to just unwrapping and wrapping. So it really doesn't make much sense. And at the end of the day, it's just it's not very much ETC in their product. And then, and so anyways, I thought it seemed to be pretty blown out of proportion. We've seen it on WETH for a very long time. And so anyways, so it just kind of is what it is.
So just for clarity, you're using the original WETC, or did you deploy a new one?
No, we deployed, we did the contract from the WETH.io. We deployed that, and that's what we'll be supporting for any of our protocols. And so we'll just be supporting that, and then we set up a repo for it. And just mind you, there's no financial incentive for it. You don't make money doing this. It's non-custodial. You know, no one's touching your funds. You can wrap and unwrap as much as you want. And so anyways, and then we ended up, the original one has 0 ETH in it, or ETC in it, just to give you a reference. There was a wrapped a WETC in Saturn protocol as well. I think it was a little bit different. I don't know if it was an ERC20, so it didn't necessarily follow that standardized thing of the project that we followed. I think it was an ERC 223, I believe, was the version. So I think that's what they did. We saw one with Chainbridge, I believe, as well. If you remember that project, and they looked like they weren't being used very much, and so. But it's the same contract. The very first one that was deployed is the same contract, but there's just no transaction. So someone might have just deployed it just to test out or whatever. If you look, there's maybe like 13 WETCs that are deployed. You can just look on Blockscout, just type in WETC.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I think it would be pretty simple to create a little application that allows you to convert between different WETCs if you like, with just single transaction instead of having to do 2. It should be fairly straightforward.
Yeah, and if you're in the protocol, also like just go to the swap protocol and you can do WETC to ETC, and we're talking about, you know, very small fees to do so. So it's really a small issue.
So I'm not sure if you're prepared for this, maybe next week or another time, but Donald is asking in the chat whether it's possible to do a demo this swap.
No, I don't really feel like doing a demo. I think if you've seen any Uniswap, you could just YouTube Uniswap. It's literally the same project. So there's plenty of content on this. You should be able to find something like that. It all functions the same.
So there is another swapping protocol deployed to ETC in the form of HebeSwap, and I was wondering if you could highlight some of the differences between these 2 projects. I mean, I think it's good to have competition. So yeah, go ahead with.
Yeah, and I actually don't think that it's competition. I actually, Ruski had asked us to add Hebe to our list, so I did that. Listen, the greatest thing is that if you have 2 pairs on chain, you get volume just keeping those in price parity. So so it's not really an issue on that. It's actually more favorable to have 2 on-chain swaps. But I think I'm not super familiar with their product. I just have looked at it and I see, we just have different offerings on our tokenless coins. You can certainly ask the Hebe team about their project. I don't know too much about their token or anything like that.
I'd say their swap is about the same. I've used both. It's just, I guess you don't have any analytics built into your swap yet, right?
We're actually building that out, which I think we have a bullet on. We talked to TheGraph, and it sounded like they're doing a migration away from hosted services. And TheGraph is the protocol that is being used in Uniswap to get all their analytics, and so they don't natively support ETC right now. It was messaged that they might be able to add it after their migration off of hosted services. I believe they're doing some sort of decentralized setup. I don't know too much about it, but it sounded like Q4 would be when they would be able to add ETC. And that's a great lift for the entire network because it allows you to pull on-chain data and create analytic dashboards for any protocol, not just ours, but anything on-chain on the ETC network. So if you think about the DeFi ecosystem kind of evolving on ETC, that's a great asset for visibility on what's going on.
Yeah, I'd say if you don't mind, like not having the analytics or whatnot, it's literally the same thing between HebeSwap and Ethereum Classic Swap.
So I'm just curious here. Can you share some thoughts about the way trading is changing with swaps, and maybe how do you see high frequency trading moving towards this technology? Maybe, I don't know, share some features, some cool features for traders or investors.
I think with this, that was kind of one of the elements of integrating the BNB chain for the bridging is for high frequency traders to keep centralized markets in pair with the on-chain markets on ETC for these stable coins, for instance. What we wanted, a lower fee to get to the centralized exchange and then get back to the ETC network. And then we think that that's the route that makes the most sense, especially since Binance will do any conversions over inside their product, and most high frequency trading outfits should be plugged into them. And then that was kind of the goal, I think, right now by us setting up the analytics and getting the APIs functioning correctly and all of that, is to start getting botted volume that is literally just keeping price parity between these liquidity pools that are meaningful and the centralized exchange. I don't know if I have anything cool to say outside of that. I think that high frequency trading people would look at that and say, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they'll make money doing it. And if the fees through the bridge are pretty low, then that means the price parity can't get too far out of whack. The other thing would be liquidity depth, right? So if there's deep liquidity, then you can do a bigger size, which gives you a bigger profit on each trade. So that's the goal. Is hopefully we start seeing that functionality. But there's a lot of stuff on the back end that we have to do to make sure the API and all the analytics and all of that's working for the bot traders.
Any plans on like creating advanced tools for trading, like like a somewhat of like a DEX or whatnot, the app?
Not really for us. I mean, I think our lift is pretty much we're rounding the end of what we're going to do for the swap product. We'll probably get it plugged in, maybe get it listed on CMC and CoinGecko, those type of things.
Like I'm talking about, what's that? There's Uniswap. What's the other one? Like Coin Uni, or the one with the unicorn or whatever, the evil looking. I forgot what's the other DEX that came out.
1inch.
What was it? 1inch? Yeah, 1inch. Yeah,
1inch.
They have the advanced kind of like ways to trade.
Be a different protocol. I think that's a DEX aggregator. So maybe they'll tie into this in the future. We'll see that because I think that they're multi networks. I think that they go through multi chains on 1inch. I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that one. But we wouldn't be. I don't think we'll be building that product. Maybe down the line we'll talk to them and look at integrations or anything like that. But no plans on any 1inch clone.
Well, now there's multiple swaps on ETC, then it seems like someone else can do that. Another low-hanging fruit project just to deploy them.
Yeah, that's the hope. Hopefully we start seeing other developers kick up. We don't have our team doesn't have any plans to, do everything and all of that. It's an open network, so I'm sure we'll see people. There's financial incentive to do so. So I think we'll see people starting to deploy on top of it.
I think a big issue is just finding developers that are actually like known or been around, and you can somewhat. I know we say don't trust verify, but I'm just saying at the same time, some random nobody appears and hey, I got this 1-inch clone, right? And then everybody puts their money in it. Next thing you know, and it's gone. I guess not everybody can verify contracts and read all of that stuff. You know what I mean? So a lot of people are still going to fall victim to it. So that's why I say it would be nice to see a team that has somewhat of a name and credibility to itself to create something to aid this, because you've created something really good. And I do think EthereumClassic.com has a really good potential in the future. And I think the route that you have taken is, it's by the book. It's proper. So I think you did a good job on that. But it's very hard to, with all these. I get it that we're still waiting for people to come over and start developing an Ethereum Classic, but at the same time, with all the hacks and shit that happen on Ethereum Classic, it's almost like, man, can't trust it. It doesn't matter. Even if people verified what the Saturn DAO and all this other stuff, them motherfuckers are gone. Never gonna hear from them. And so it would be nice to see a team that has somewhat of credibility, or a developer that has some sort of a years of credibility on the Ethereum Classic chain to create a product that not us, but like, newcomers and even myself included can somewhat trust before we even, go any further, or even bother looking at, because at this point it's just anything that comes out on ETC is just like, it's trash. I'm not even going to look into this because it's probably another fucking scam.
Yeah, I think you bring up great points, and it is tough, So, yeah, I mean, I think using any new protocol in this space is very tough, and I agree with you that it's hard to trust things when there's scams are so prevalent everywhere on many networks. So I don't know how to solve that, but anyways, I agree with you. It would be nice to see reputable big development teams start coming over to ETC, and hopefully that happens as hash rate increases and interest increases. I think miners are a big element to that. And definitely in terms of 51% attacks, hash rate is important. And so I think that's the first step. And I think we're seeing it happen. It's a lot slower over here due to the different type of funding mechanisms.
For sure. Do we know if majority of the nodes still run in MES, or?
I would assume they are if it's on default. But yeah, hopefully after the merge we can get rid of that. Just for the comment on the idea of trusting developers and apps, I think that for a lot of the projects that have been deployed on Ethereum mainnet and they've been shown to be trustworthy, or at least not buggy, then it's fairly easy to sort of like copy and paste the code and verify the code is the same. So if the protocol is just completely trustless in how it operates, just like with Uniswap, then you don't really need to trust anyone. So as long as you can ask one developer to say, hey, is this code that's deployed the same? Is it verified in the Explorer? And am I accessing it through a trusted source, like through IPFS? Then there's very little that can go wrong in terms of scams.
And I just want to add something in terms of credibility. Well, it's not really very wise in terms of security to just go public and say, hey, this is my team, and give their names, give everything, right? So to achieve that credibility, because the world is not really pink. If you look at Kraken, for example, they had to move office from one part of the country to another place because some employers got attacked. I don't know. I think this news was 4 months ago or 6 months ago. So there's also security aspects that need to be taken in consideration. So anonymity, if it's cool, if you have audits on your product and you basically fork well-known and good projects who proven stability for high volumes and, I don't know, moving money. So I think it's okay.
Well, I think there's also a level of professionalism and, who you're dealing with. A 12-year-old can fork a code and put it up there, like, hey, I'm creating this token to support my DAO, blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't know what the hell he's doing, or where to even start. Just it was a quick money grab. And then there's, a team it might be anonymous, but they're known for their work for years. And they create something, and you can tell you're working with professionals here and create something professional, and you're more likely to have something that has a future. So there's also that aspect to where, like, why would I use this versus over that? You know what I mean? So
yeah, I understand you, but you need to understand that you can expect from a team who launches a product to also educate their public and let them know. I think overall there is no way to help users as bring proofs. You need to have exchanges, training, or giving more information about what they are getting into it. For me now, after, I don't know, 8 years, I think.
well, that's what I mean by credibility.
It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier for me to distinguish between projects, but in terms of noobs coming down the pipe, well, I don't know. They should really understand first of all the stock market, and then see this more riskier place.
Okay, so shall we move on, or is there any other comments on Ronan's project?
I'd just say I think there was a good point in there of contracts that have audits on them and such, and that was something that we tried to do. Just best practices is we tried to use contracts and code that had already been audited, had thorough review, and that's actually with multi-chain, with the bridge. They had fresh audits. I think they had 3 fresh audits. If you end up going into the repo, the github.com/etc swap, I think we aggregated all of the audits in a folder called public audits. We ran some internal tests too. And then we saw, like for instance, with Uniswap v2, are there any new exploits since their last detailed audit, stuff like that. And I think that's really important for anyone that's putting things up on ETC, is that you try to lean into audited contracts opposed to writing custom code all the time. Not only is it really helpful in terms of reducing resources that are necessary, but you get to lean on all of those security expenses that have already been paid. And so anyways, every contract that we used had been audited and reviewed. And then for Uniswap v2, you guys know there is serious value that is going through there. So those contracts, and that's true for HebeSwap too, if the contracts are identical, those contracts should be, you should have a lot of trust in those, in the sense that there has been a massive bounty on the ETH network to hack all of those contracts, and that hasn't happened. So those would be the big target, right? So anyways, just wanted to just point out that that's what we tried to do, is use audited contracts.
Yeah, and you can see on the Ethereum Classic website, there is for apps that are listed on there, there's a trust checklist, which we've talked about on previous calls. So for people that do want to figure out what level of quality a project has, they can quite easily glance at the website and link to all the various different audits and things that are considered objective and measurable in terms of adding a level of security. I hesitate to use the word trust, but I guess people have more ability to trust projects the more of those things that they check off.
Yeah, and one of those things is an IPFS gateway. And so that allows you that if the user interface goes down on a centralized service, you can always interact with those contracts through the IPFS gateway. So that's really secure for someone that might worry that, oh my gosh, what happens if the site goes offline? These are decentralized contracts. So as long, and now you're getting a decentralized UI UX, right? So you'll always be able to interact with these protocols if you have that IPFS gateway. And so I'm not sure if other dApps are doing that, but if they're not, they definitely should try to start setting up IPFS gateways for their applications.
The other benefit of the IPFS gateway is that it's content addressed. So if there's an audit that specifically references a version of the front end with a specific hash, then the end user can be sure that the code that they're interacting with is operating as intended and has not added any malicious code to it. So there's a few benefits to using IPFS.
Yeah, and IPFS may be a little slower sometimes. Sometimes it's pretty ridiculously slow, but it will load. Other times you don't even notice that you're using a different path to interact with the protocols. So I highly encourage anyone that's looking around at our protocol to use the IPFS gateway and just test it out. Just get a feel for it. It's good security practice for sure.
One last question. It's related to ETC co-op. So you probably know and maybe discuss they will open a grant program. So are you guys thinking about applying, and if yes, what are the areas you are most interested in?
I just saw Bob's grant goals, and I think some of the stuff that we deployed already addresses those. And so I had mentioned that if he wants to pay out grants for those, that he could just add those funds into the liquidity pools. I think that's a better use for him if that's what he wants to do. But they haven't formally listed any grants, and he had mentioned that last call. So I thought, just based on his notes in his 2021 report, that we had accomplished many of those goals just in this product, on-chain price oracles and such. But it's up to him. He controls all of those. If we receive any grant from them, all we would do is deposit them into these liquidity pools. So it's no issue for us.
You mentioned a very good point there about price oracles, and now with these different assets, there is a means for contracts to be built upon this by reading the current price from your contracts. So interesting potential next steps.
Yeah, there was a lot of thought in that. That's why these pairs were targeted in this product. So there's some security features built into Uniswap v2 for on-chain protocols. Obviously, we like to see liquidity increase and everything, because you can start to adjust the price pretty easy with just a couple $100, but it does take in the time value and all of that, blocks and the timing that the markets have been live. And so anyways, there's elements in there. I think it'll be a great lift later on. I definitely wouldn't trust the price oracles right now if I was setting up a DApp, but I hope to see people plug into these and use those in the future. Also, just, general swapping functionality of getting Tether or any of these coins inside a different DApp, totally a different UI UX here. I don't know what people will build, but I know that these are foundational markets for ETC. So hopefully the big lift that I see materializes over the next couple of years with this launch.
Out of interest, do you know if multi-chain has any contract interface in terms of pricing?
No, I don't. I can't speak on their product in that type of depth.
All right, I think there'll be an awesome guest to have on. Okay, so moving on to the next point in the agenda, and I'll combine these into one, which is website content and the merge and roadmap for updating the Ethereum Classic website. And I guess, Ronan, you put these points together. Did you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so this is okay, so sorry, is this minor content? Is that where we are on the bullets?
Yeah, just general, I guess, website updates.
Oh, yeah. So I think my questions here were, especially for the mining community, how are the guides on the website for getting people onboarded to ETC from other networks? I think we have a decent mining community. If we have dated guides, maybe they can help out updating those. It's really just, hey, are we prepared to onboard miners for the merge event? That's the general question here.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
I think there was some effort put into a migration guide. I'm not sure if it's still up to date, but definitely something worth looking at.
I got a question. Is ETC Cooperative doing anything or working on anything before the end of 2022? Anybody know? And do we also have labs? Is labs working, or they're just out of the picture completely? Is labs still contributing to ETC?
Labs, I believe, have exited the ecosystem. So labs, no. For ETC Co-op, probably the latest update is their recent overview and roadmap of 2022. And you could also listen to the last week's call, which we had with Bob, and discuss some of the goings on.
Gotcha.
Yeah, some of the takeaways, if I remember, just a TLDR on that, was I believe they're doing some stuff with clients. Listen for the specific details. They have not issued any grants yet for the grant stuff, but it's $250K in total. And I believe they said that they were going to do that this year. So should look out for those. And then I believe we were talking about RPC endpoints and the .org. And it sounded like Terry from Labs personally owns the .org or controls it. And so Bob was reaching out to him and seeing if he would donate it over to the co-op. Or do something to set up a static URL for the RPC endpoint. I think those were the big takeaways. It was a highly informal or informational call last week, so I would definitely go back and listen to him.
All right, thanks, man.
Protocol like that.
Looks like the next bullet is the add the MetaMask button. I saw that you had a PR for that, and
Yeah, that's right.
it worked for me locally.
Yeah, did you test any transactions with that, or just adding it? Because yeah, I also tested adding, but I just want to make sure the RPC URLs are correct. They should be fine if it's adding. MetaMask automatically checks for the chain ID, so I think the RPC URL is fine. I think the blockchain explorer, I'm not sure where within MetaMask that's used, so it'd be nice to see if anyone can check that.
Oh yeah, if you send a transaction and then you just look, it has a button to say check on chain, and I'll check one right now while we're view on Block Explorer. Yeah, that was fine. Yeah, so I just changed networks and it auto configured back to ETC. So it ended up working for me. Hopefully, I believe you left a note for everyone to try that that button on the deploy website.
Yeah, in general. I mean, if it's working, I can't see why we can't merge it, but it'd be just nice to get an additional check before we yeah.
Yeah, and on different browsers and everything, different devices, all of that.
Right, yeah, mobile as well. I haven't checked on. There was a potential user interface question that I guess I'll float. It would be possible to hide the button if MetaMask is not installed, but that might be confusing. I thought it would just be better to show it, and if they click it, it just says MetaMask not detected. So, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Is just to have it MetaMask not installed. That seems fine.
Or maybe have a link to that that gets you MetaMask, the add-on.
That's a good point. I'll I'll figure out some way of adding a link to the Chrome Play Store or MetaMask website. And yeah, so hopefully it's a lot easier now for people to onboard into Ethereum Classic. You also mentioned a CoinMarketCap self-reporting form. We need to make a blog post to organize that.
Yeah, so what this relates to is this is the Twitter account that's gone stale, and I was just looking at how we would adjust info to add a second Twitter account if we needed to, as we had talked about running a Twitter account out of the GitHub repo, similar to how the .org is ran, with those type of reviews and checks and balances. And so while I was looking through that, they have this new function where instead of pinging them with the stuff that needs to be updated, you can actually apply to be a self-reporting entity, and you won't be able to adjust like the market cap, which would move you up and down the list, but just basic things about the project and just the basic content, and perhaps add and remove social assets. And so that's what I was looking at it. And my ping was to see if co-op and what other emails we wanted to use to say, hey, these ones, give these people access to update the CoinMarketCap page for the project. And so if we did that, we don't have access to the Twitter, right? So how we could verify is we could do it through the blog on the .org site, and then CoinMarketCap can verify that any contacts that are added to that list are valid. So, anyways, in this agenda, you can see the form that they have, and that was the general thought about it, was trying to get that new Twitter account that we've been talking about that would be managed out of the GitHub repo added into that CoinMarketCap list, so that there would be 2 Twitter accounts listed in there.
Sounds reasonable. I guess the only thing to consider is about transparency regarding which accounts are able to make updates and stuff, but I see it as fairly small responsibility, so hard to really
that's
abuse,
why
I guess.
that's why I was pinging Bob over at Co-op and thinking maybe they should be the people to do that. I think that's a pretty low lift, and you know, it kind of sits in their realm.
Yep.
Oh, and just to touch on that, back in like 2019, we did go through all of the socials and we updated a lot of stuff back then. I just don't think that that's happened since about 2019. That was back with that website revamp that happened. So this is just in line with all of that.
Okay, so I guess we're now moving into the free talk. If anyone has any topics they're interested in discussing or questions, please feel free to jump in. And I'll just quickly check the chat channels to see if there's any questions. The only comment I saw is that Donald needs a McDonald's hat. But apart from that, I think we're good. So final call for comments and questions, and then we can wrap things up.
If you guys, I can make a trading analysis next time. We'll see when next time is.
Sounds good. And
I
yeah,
got
we
a small
can.
question. I don't know if you can answer it. Is Co-op still working with Charles by chance, or in any way?
It doesn't sound like it, as far as I know.
Okay.
But yeah, bro, it would be good to get some market updates in a future call. And on that note, the next call is going to have a unspecified time again. It's probably not going to be next week or the week after, but hopefully we continue and have these at least for the next few months, maybe monthly, maybe bi-weekly. But following September, by Q4, we should be back on a weekly schedule at a more routine interval. So if there's any other final points, now's the final time. If not, we'll wrap up. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us this week, and we will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you.